So in this Red Dead video clip or Red Dead video discussion, I will be talking about, was John Marston in Undead Nightmare fighting zombies or demons? Now, in this video, I'm going to do my best to do some editing because I want to show clips along with visuals and sounds and difference between the two to really determine and to depict, if not bring up the discussion or the debate, was John fighting zombies or demons, because there's clearly, a difference between the two, and there are going to be a lot of examples within this video right here. Now, to start from the beginning, to give a bit of a history lesson, the word zombie came from Africa, which was the word mindless slave. And I'd done a video, talking about, before there was slavery here in the US, each culture had their own slaves. And, Africa's so-called kings and queens did enslave their own people, and I will be, adding a end screen video or video down description below talking about, with racism and slavery and the history of that things, people don't want to, really talk about or point out the actual history with things. And it's a bit of a long video, but I'm glad I did it. And I think it's something that people do need to watch to get a better understanding of things, especially my point of view coming from a mixed black man here in America. So, with that being said, let's kind of go a little bit more within these next several scenes, where zombies come from, which even goes back to what I was saying about being mindless slaves, was what brought the word zombies to the word of it, if you will, came from black magic, which was riches, and we see some examples of that where witches were using the undead to do their bidding. So within these two clips coming up from Scooby-Doo episode called Witch's Witch, you'll see an example of that, and even an example from the movie Hocus Pocus. So with that being said, here you go.
Good! The money! Money, money, money!
Here, Double Ugly, go buy yourself a new face!
Billy! Billy, listen to me! Kill him if you must! Just bring me that child, that daddy! And put some wiggle in it, you putrid, pestering saw! Don't come along now! Come along now! Kill him!
So as you've seen right there, it shows like, okay, witches use the undead for their bidding, for their own personal doing. Even going back to what I was saying before, when the word zombie came about, with using the word of mindless slaves, with rulers ruling over people to do their bidding and would brainwash them. We had two very old black and white movies, one called White Zombie and the other one King of the Zombies, that you'll see two posters of because I can't find any clips anywhere online. Seeing right there is two of the movie posters from those movies that I was talking about, that really go into what I was saying with, you had rulers, using, brainwashing to brainwash people to be mindless zombies, to be slaves. So zombies weren't always depicted as, ripping people apart, eating people. They weren't always, depicted of that. We really didn't get a sense of that till the movie called Night of the Living Dead. And rather than zombies, they called them ghouls. But zombies, the depiction of the word, been around from each and every culture around the world before they even knew each other existed. And with a lot of the stories and a lot of things from back then that were documented to the best of their abilities, makes one think, were zombies once upon a time real? Yeah, I believe so. If you take a look at the case that happened so many years ago down in Florida, you had a black man walking around naked, attacked somebody, ate their face off, and the cops kept shooting him, and he just never went down until after a headshot, and they labeled him as the Florida zombie. And his autopsy, they found some herbs that black magic and people who study black magic to use to bring the dead back to life and use them as zombies, as slaves, which you can only get from across seas with a certain plant that you cannot get here, in America. So there's a prime example right there. Within the next example as well, determine the not just visual and audio, but really give the depiction of, what the zombie looks like and sounds like versus what the demons and demon sounds look like within these next upcoming clips right here.
What's happening? Can't be true. We gotta get out of here.
So with what you just saw, you saw two clips, one from The Walking Dead and one from a movie called Night of the Demons. So far, there's a lot of proof just right there determine, what was John Marston, fighting an undead nightmare? Was he fighting zombies? Was he fighting demons? To go a bit more, I think that gives it proof to show that he was fighting demons. And I'm in the middle of playing Undead Nightmare for the first time. And I was going to the bank and I had to put down one of the so-called zombies, and John Marston called it a demon, not a zombie. So does that still go to show, was he fighting demons? Is this a demon breakout? Well, what if I told you that Undead Nightmare, the storyline, even the idea from The Mask, bringing, turning people into demons but not zombies, right? What if I told you that was actually an idea that Rockstar pretty much stole from a movie called Demons that came out in 1985? Okay, and to show, I'm going to show some movie scene clips from Demons from 1985, because you're going to see a mask being involved and people turning into demons. And the movie, takes place in a movie theater and they're trapped. I don't want to give away so much of the movie. Anybody that sees this, I do recommend watching that movie. It's called Demons. All you gotta do is put demons in, then put in 1985. And there's also part 2 that came out in 1986. Very good movies. I do recommend them. Then also in the other scene, you're gonna see the green mask and zombies from Undead Nightmare. So you can see where they got that idea from. So with that being said, check out these clips.
Episode, we're going to bring hell to us with the 1985 Italian gore film Demons. Let's get to it. We open in the subway as the city moves rhythmically to a tune that would be at home in any Ninja Turtles movie. Here we find our main character Cheryl, who nearly misses her stop, and then tarries too long, soon finding herself alone in the subway tube. She has the sneaking suspicion that she's being pursued by some sort of new age steampunk, but it turns out he's a friendly weirdo, handing out free movie passes to a new theater downtown. Excited for this turn of events, she runs off to show her bestie Kathy, desperately seeking Kathy's approval and jealousy. They arrive at the Metropole at dusk, where a small crowd has begun filtering in. Some of the less refined cinema aficionados play with the promotional display, and the mask takes first blood on Rosemary. Inside, these two helpful chads slide in next to the ladies, biding their time in the hope that the girls will soon be in need of comfort. The movie starts up and the crowd is excited to see it prominently features dirt bikes, but disgusted to find it has learning in it. The characters venture deeper into the catacombs, eventually finding the tomb of Nostradamus, along with this mask which scratches this character's face when he dons it. We find the movie is mimicking reality as this young hoe goes to address her weeping wound and finds it needs more than a dab with a hanky. Carmen goes to check on her friend and finds she's doing just fine, and then takes a detour to look for some ointment or disinfectant, but gets lost amid the heavy curtains. She ends up behind the screen with a leaky pustule on her neck. She tries to get help and eventually leaps through the screen. While the crowd checks on her, Rosemary treats these young lovers to an elevation of their kink, with a dual asphyxiation. As the crowd comes to the slow realization that the events of the movie are coming true in real life now, Carmen confirms this by transitioning to demon and getting freaky. They all try to clear out, but not quite fast enough as Carmen proceeds to goatsy this man's throat. As the first wave crashes against the lobby doors, they find themselves stuck, crammed in like rats. After tearing the doors away in their panic, they're horrified to find that they've been walled in somehow. The crowd disperses, looking for the emergency exits, which are surely still functional. This straggler goes her own way and ends up getting scalped by Rosemary. The boys notice the struggle and manage to shut her into the room with some effort, and now they moist as hell. Tony further explains how the mask had scratched Rose, and determines what they ought to be doing is shutting down the evil-inducing movie. When they bust in, there is no projectionist, and no one has the expertise to handle the machines, so they get smashy. However, the now double-blind man suggests the theater itself is what's causing this madness. They start to dispose of the corpses to avoid potential demon attacks, but then are promptly attacked by a demon, and that's the opposite of what they wanted. Tony whips out his stiletto and gets fashionably stabby, causing this demon to give poor innocent Hannah a bloodbath. We then take a moment to jam our way uptown, where these joyriders cruise the streets and enjoy some coke, which was intended as a pun, but then they actually start snorting cocaine through the straw. After a spill, they pull over to clean up, stopping near the theater. Inside, the survivors start to barricade themselves in the balcony section. Tony takes over as their leader, but only briefly as his ham hock becomes demon fodder, and he's sacrificed for the greater good. Once they finish their work, they start pounding on the walls to attract outside attention, eventually managing to break through. On the other side, they find a chamber of some sort, but it doesn't appear to offer a way out, so the girls go nuts. But they eventually all settle in and sweat it out on the balcony. Meanwhile, our punks find themselves being harassed by a couple of pigs. They take off running down a blind alley, searching for a way out until fate shines favorably on them, welcoming them warmly. They enter the now quiet theater and take a look around. They find an intriguing door blocked by their favorite beverage. The boys continue on, but Nina finds herself enamored with her own reflection, and she suffers for her vanity. While the movie-going demons become active, the sounds of possible rescue drive the survivors into a frenzy, and they begin to dismantle the barricade. However, rather than salvation, they find demons playing peekaboo, and they get absolutely ravaged. This attack demonstrates the girls chose their potential mates well, because George and Ken deftly fend off the attackers. They then consider the possibility of escaping through a shaft, but are distracted from this when Kathy starts to change and then menace them. Ken, having chosen Kathy as his future conquest, takes on the responsibility of pushing her wig back. She graciously accepts this damage and assumes the position.
Look at her back!
Yeah, obviously. Ken gets slashed in the struggle and nobly removes himself from the equation, but Cheryl and George nobly pursue him, despite their complete inability to help. So, George hits his boy with a quick shoulder rub, and a mercy decapitation with a prop katana. George then mounts the dirt bike with his sword and rides to Cheryl's rescue like he's Dolph Lundgren, and once again, they jam out, swatting at the evil beasts with his sword. When a helicopter crashes through the ceiling, they see an opportunity for escape. George grabs a grappling gun he knows is standard equipment in any helicopter, and they winch themselves through the hole. Their escape is almost brought to an end by the reappearance of the Metal Man, but through the power of teamwork, they manage to press a piece of rebar through his dumb metal face. They emerge to a city in ruins and are picked up by a merry band of survivalists on their way out of town. As they head off toward a new life together, hoping neither has an annoying habit the other hasn't found out about yet, Cheryl finds a head pustule, turns into a demon, and is unceremoniously dumped off the back like a pile of trash.
fear I won't. None of us will. We are all doomed. Because of him.
Him? He wasn't a great guy, but I'm afraid you're giving him a little too much credit, my dear. Haven't I seen you before?
No. He caused this with his greed and his lust for power. He heard an ancient myth and tested it. It caused all of these terrible things. His vanity overwhelmed us all.
What the hell are you talking about? Where have I seen you?
Me? Oh, I have a common enough face. I'm from here. He disturbed the royal burial grounds that lie underneath the town. He heard there was a mask hidden there that would make him invincible.
I've heard this blamed on Mexicans, Jewish people, freed slaves, the federal government, immigrants, the bad weather. Now this. What's wrong with people?
It's true. Look in that chest. He has a sacred mask. That is where this plague came from. Him and his awful lust for power.
Where did you say the crypt was?
Near the bullfighting ring. Behind the Via.
Well, I guess it's worth a shot.
So with what you just saw, you saw from the movie that came out in 1985 and then Undead Nightmare that came out in 2010 or 2011, I do believe it was. So the real question, again, was John Marston fighting zombies or what he's fighting? Demons. To me, with my own answer, I believe he was fighting demons just because there's a lot that really shows the depiction of it being demons, from the sound, the way they looked, from it evolving a mask that goes into a cult, just like in the first movie, and more so than it is zombies, because to me it's just not zombies. Even when you have John Marston saying demons and not zombies in the game. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you with two other examples from a movie from demons, and also a clip from Undead Nightmare showing, zombie attacks, the sound, and also, demons as well that are attacking in this movie that may not have the sound, because the only thing I could really find was somebody doing a discussion, which is okay, but I think rather than it really being a depiction, it's going to show how the two are similar, and it really showing it being demons and not zombies. So to me, I think it does go to show that John Marston was most definitely fighting demons and not zombies, which goes back into the purgatory theory that I did, that I'll leave an end screen video too. The woman in the game, she's always disappearing, and some say she was the goddess of that mask. I look at it like she was the anticipation of death, but also John's guardian angel as well. And that she brought upon the plague within this game, just like the people that brought on the plague in the movie Demons, that involves a mask. So, with that being said, I'm out, and check out these two other clips. Let me know what you guys think. Was it zombies he was fighting, or was it demons?
And then totally destroys the vibe by making everyone stare at her wretched teeth while she transforms. The partygoers find the child locks have been engaged, and they get absolutely shredded to ribbons. Once she's had her fill, Sally wins Mortal Kombat, dying a valiant death, but leaving her to...